statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Hello, welcome Bitcoiners, welcome traders, welcome followers, welcome supporters, welcome haters, welcome to all of you. Welcome to another live space with Oliver Velez. Of course, my name is Oliver Velez, and I am your Bitcoiner for life. Yes, that is me. I'm also your 13%er. That's right. I'm your 13%er Bitcoiner. Now, most of you who have been listening to my live spaces, you should be very well aware of the fact that at the top of every single talk that I do, I briefly explain what a 13%er is. I believe that those who have adopted Bitcoin by 2023, by now, this year, they are considered to be elite. Why? Because only 0.5% of all people on planet Earth have adopted Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, secure Bitcoin. That is an extraordinarily small amount. In fact, it's not only a drop in a bucket, it's less than a drop in a bucket. And that makes anyone at this particular point in time who's already adopted Bitcoin in one form or another extraordinarily elite. Anyone who believes in Bitcoin, has adopted it in any way, today, you can consider yourselves elite. Those people can consider themselves elite. Well, only 13% of those are Bitcoin only. So out of all the people who've adopted Bitcoin up until this point, which is still extraordinarily small, there is an even smaller group than that, the 13%ers, those that believe that Bitcoin is the only innovation, those that believe that Bitcoin is the only money, those that believe that Bitcoin is not an invention, it's actually a discovery, and discoveries are one-off events. Discoveries are one-time, very special things. I am of the belief that Bitcoin was not discovered because Bitcoin is the representation, or the manifestation, I should say, of digital scarcity. I do not believe that digital scarcity was created. I do not believe that digital scarcity came from a human being, a man, an organization. I believe that digital scarcity is a new frontier that was simply waiting for the human race to find it. In the same way that pieces of land were at one particular point uninhabited by human beings and were discovered by human beings. That discovery did not mean that the land did not exist. It was simply discovered. There was a time when the human beings never knew or understood that there was an entire level of life, an entire world that existed beneath the world that we could see, feel, touch, smell, the atomic world. The atomic world always existed since the beginning of time. Atoms, neutrons, protons, electrons, these things existed before. They were waiting for human beings to discover them. But once a discovery is made, it can't be made again. You can't have a second discovery of the same thing. Bitcoin was a discovery. In the same fashion that it took some individual at some point, or a group of individuals, to put together materials, metal, steel, aluminum, glass, rubber, to create this contraption called a microscope that gave them the ability to look at something deeper than the human eye was ever capable of looking at it. The putting together of those things to create the microscope wasn't the invention of the atomic world that we know today and the subatomic world that we know today. Someone or a group of people put this contraption together, and it is the putting together of that contraption called the microscope that led to the discovery of something that had existed since for time immemorial. And I believe that Satoshi Nakamoto, he, she, they, it, whatever Satoshi Nakamoto represents, put together a variety of things that already existed, and the collective event that happened as a result of putting these unique ingredients together discovered something that had always existed: digital scarcity. It was always there, waiting for humans to catch up, to arrive at the point of being able to recognize it, to see it, and to appreciate it. These are things that cannot be duplicated. Bitcoin is a one-off discovery. Bitcoin is a one-time discovery. You can't have something discovered twice. And so whenever you see me hashtag Bitcoin only, it's just another way of saying I'm a 13%er. The 13% believe and know in their heart and their soul that everything I just said is true. You can't have an alternative to fire. Fire was a one-off discovery. You can't have a second version of the number zero. No one invented the number zero, people. Zero was discovered by the Pythagoreans. And it changed the way human beings live every aspect of their lives from that point onward. The number zero wasn't a discovery. I mean, I'm sorry, the number zero was not an invention, it was a discovery that continues to impact every moment of our lives today. You can't have a 0.2. You can't have a second version of the discovery of the number zero. Electricity was discovered, it was not invented, somewhere around 600 AD. Today, human beings are still adopting the discovery of electricity. Electricity is still impacting the entire human race today. We still have only seen and had access to the tip of the iceberg in terms of what electricity will do for the human race going forward. Electricity was not an invention. It was a discovery. And you can't have an electricity 2.0. You can't have an alternative electricity. The internet was the discovery of the digital world. The internet is a protocol that gave us the ability to discover a world that always existed. The digital world always existed. Human beings had to arrive at a place to be able to see it, to understand it, to come in contact with it, to recognize it. And to this very day, the internet continues to affect every single corner of our lives. There is no alternative internet. There is no internet 2.0. Human beings today are becoming more and more comfortable living in this new world, they're becoming more acquainted with this new world called the digital world. And this digital world continues to claim the things that we used to value in the analog or the physical world. The digital world has already sucked all of our photos into it. You're looking around to this very day. You're no longer looking around for pictures in an album today. You're looking in the digital world for your pictures, your movies, your snapshots. The digital world has claimed what you used to respect and honor in the old world, the analog world, and it has claimed that for itself in the new world. And you have gotten comfortable living with your photos, your snapshots, and most of your videos in the digital world today. Your books have largely been sucked into the brand new world that the internet gave us the ability to discover. Your movies are there, your mail is there. Most of you no longer lick the back of disgusting envelopes, the glue on disgusting envelopes and stamps, and making sure you have the right cost for delivering your physical mail to your uncles, your aunts, your cousins, your friends around the world today. Your mail has been sucked into this brand new world that the internet gave us the ability to discover. It was always there. We just had to put together the steel, the aluminum, the rubber, the glass, to be able to see it, recognize it, and to begin to appreciate it. Bitcoin furthered the discovery that the internet gave us the ability to know. The internet gave us the digital world, but Bitcoin gave us the fact, helped us discover that there is actually scarcity in this brand new digital world. Bitcoin is the manifestation of digital scarcity. We never knew scarcity existed in this brand new world. We thought scarcity only existed in the analog world, in the physical world. Bitcoin came into existence to help us know that no, scarcity is here too. We always thought that the digital world could never have scarcity because you could simply copy a piece of mail over and over again. We never thought digital scarcity existed because you could copy a file as often and as frequently as you wanted, that you could copy a piece of music, that you could copy a book. We never knew that it existed, and Bitcoin came into existence to reveal the fact that no, digital scarcity exists in this brand new world as well. And this discovery can't happen twice. You can't have an alternative discovery. It can only happen once. And discoveries, ladies and gentlemen, discoveries, my dear Bitcoiners, my dear traders, my dear followers, my supporters, my haters, discoveries are forever. Discoveries are eternal. Discoveries cannot be undiscovered. Discoveries cannot be destroyed. They last for eternity because they've always existed since the beginning of time. The discovery of something doesn't start its existence. It reveals its eternal existence. Bitcoin is the manifestation, or the revelation, I should say, of something that always existed since the beginning of time: digital scarcity. And there is no alternative to digital scarcity. There is no 2.0 digital scarcity. There is no alternative. There is no freaking altcoin. There is no shitcoin that is a second or better version of this discovery. And that is what a 13%er believes. And I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I am a part of that 13%. And if you are, let me know. I want to hear it. I want to know my fellow 13%ers. And if you aren't, I hope you stay close enough, because I'm going to try every single day of my waking life to try to convince you that you should be one. Now take that. All right, guys, listen, happy Friday. I was just with you yesterday. We had an amazing talk, I thought. And today, this is sort of impromptu for me, because I had no initial plans to have a live session with you today, but I just couldn't get this thought in my mind. I couldn't get this thought, I should say, out of my mind. Recently, I've just come across so many comments regarding the past performance of Bitcoin. And almost universally, I hear from people that, yes, they recognize that Bitcoin has had this amazing performance in the past, but there's this almost universal blanket belief that it's impossible for Bitcoin to produce anything similar to its past going forward. And I believe that this is false. I believe it's a fallacy. And I believe that it's actually ignorant to think so. I think it's ignorant to think that Bitcoin's, despite how meteoric Bitcoin's rise has been over the ensuing years, I believe it's ignorant to think that its best years are behind it. I think it's not only wrong, I think it's ignorant. And I hope by the end of my talk, my monologue here, that you'll believe this or think this as well. Now, for those of you who are listening to me for the first time, I do want you to know that I just basically do a monologue here, and I try my best to take some of your questions at the end of that monologue. I'm not in the habit of handing over the mic to you. That is what I believe, that my style of talking to you is best delivered in a monologue form. And perhaps sometime in the future, I will have guests on or pass the mic to you or what have you. But right now, it is my opinion that I can do a lot more through the monologue way of communicating with you. In addition to that, this material that I'm talking about, this segment, this live session, is going to be used by my team in a variety of other formats. So it'll wind up on my Bitcoin podcast called, my Bitcoin podcast called Bitcoin Unleashed. I strongly encourage that you follow that. I'll drop the link in the show notes below after my talk today. And some of the points that I make in this monologue will be cut up and sliced up into clips and shorts and things of that nature, and used to help orange pill one human being at a time, forever. I do try to make my talks regarding Bitcoin universal in nature, so that they are not so time specific that in a week or two or a month or a year, what we talk about here is so irrelevant. I try to keep it universally relevant so that anyone who revisits our talks will still find something of extraordinary value. All right. So let's get into the talk today. I believe that Bitcoin's biggest price appreciation is in front of us, not behind us. Now, let me give you my base case for this belief. In order to do that, I have to go over a bit or touch upon the highlights of Bitcoin's past. Bitcoin is the best performing asset the world has ever known. And it strikes me, I'm always awestruck when I mention that to people, and the vast majority of people are still largely unaware of the fact that there has never been an asset in the history of human mankind that has performed better than Bitcoin. And this number one status on the part of Bitcoin is not marginal. No, nothing has come even close. It's almost as if Bitcoin is in a different galaxy when it comes to its performance. Bitcoin is so far number one ahead of every single asset the world has ever known throughout its entire existence. It is so far number one that everyone else that number two thinks it's number one. That the asset in second place, the NASDAQ, the asset in second place thinks it's in first place because it can't even see Bitcoin. Bitcoin is so far ahead that it thinks it's first in the race. No, Bitcoin's first. Nothing that human beings have ever come in contact with has outperformed Bitcoin. It is the best performing asset the world has ever known by far. So keep that fact in your pocket. Second, it holds the best performing record for every time period one can conceive. It has the best one-day record of any asset in existence. It has the best 1 week record for any asset that has ever existed. It has the best 1 month record for any asset that has ever existed. The best quarter, the best year, the best 2 years, the best 3 years, the best 5 years, the best 10 years, the best 15 years, any and every time period you can possibly conceive. Bitcoin is not only the best performing asset in that time frame, it is the best performing asset by far. It's almost incalculable. This is crazy. Now, let me touch upon this. Some of you have been following me for a while. You know my history. I have been trading the financial markets for the last 43 years of my life. 37 of those years, I have been a professional trader. I landed my first trading job on Wall Street in December of 1986. I've wanted to do nothing else with my life except trade the markets. I started very early in my life. I was fortunate enough to do that. I have never done anything else with my entire life but deal with financial markets. I will leave it up to you whether or not you feel that that warrants me having something of importance to say. That is up to you. But I will say this, throughout my entire 4-decade career, I was taught and I understood that the truth in financial markets is revealed over a 10-year period. Listen to me carefully. I'm going to repeat this statement again because it's extraordinarily important. Throughout my entire career, I have been taught and I have understood, like every single other person in my industry, we are taught and we understand that the truth in financial markets is revealed over a 10-year period. Why? Because you can't fake a 10-year record. You can fake a 1-year record. You can get lucky with even a 3-year record. But as you continue to extend the time, you can't fake a 10-year record. You can fake a 2-year record. You can get lucky with a 3-year record. You certainly can get lucky with a 1-month record, a quarterly record. You can just hit a specific thing at the right time, at the right place, and get an amazing performance. But when you go to 10 years, and that 10-year record is solid, you know you have the truth. All of my life, all of my adult life, I was taught that when you're looking for a true, talented money manager, you want them to have a 10-year record. All of my life, throughout my whole career, if you want to know whether or not you have a solid mutual fund, look at their 10-year record. If you want to know if you have a true, talented hedge fund or trader, look at their 10-year record. Don't look at their 1-year record. Don't look at their quarterly record. Don't even look at their 3-year record. Look at their 10-year record. And if they don't have a 10-year record, they're not there yet. Throughout my entire career, this is what I've been taught. This is what I understood. This is what everyone in my industry is taught. 10-year record. reveals the truth. You can't get lucky with 10 years. 10 years is enough time to go through all types of market environments, all types of geopolitical scenarios, all types of economic setups and scenarios. You can't fake a 10-year record. Please understand that. Bitcoin has a 15-year record. Well, almost. January 3rd or 9th, depending upon how you look at it. January of 2024. January is Bitcoin's 15th year birthday, or anniversary, I should say. So I ask you, over a 15-year period, Bitcoin has outperformed every single thing the world has ever known, and it's done it by far, almost in an incalculable way. And yet you still think it's fake. That is ignorant. You still think Bitcoin's performance is not real. That is ignorant, because 10 years reveals the truth. 10 years you cannot fake. The entire financial industry knows this, has taught this, has always understood this. But somehow, when it comes to Bitcoin, everyone seems to have amnesia. When it comes to Bitcoin, oh, it doesn't apply here. Bullshit. It's ignorant. How many more years do you need to see? 100 years? You need 100 years to be convinced? 1,000 years? You've got 15 years. How many more do you need? Despite Bitcoin's meteoric rise, despite its #1 status, despite its almost incalculable gain, Bitcoin hasn't even started yet. Despite its 15-year incredible history, Bitcoin hasn't even started yet. Despite it having the best record of any asset ever known to mankind, it hasn't even started yet. Despite the fact that it holds the #1 spot in every conceivable time frame you can conceive or create, it hasn't even started yet. Bitcoin hasn't even started warming up yet. If I were to use a sports analogy, Bitcoin has just arrived to the parking lot as a player, doesn't even have his shoes on, hasn't even got out of the vehicle to enter the stadium hours before the game. Bitcoin hasn't even warmed up yet. And I hope by the end of my talk, you'll understand this, you'll believe this, and you'll see this. Why do I say this? It's simple. It's simple, Bitcoiners. It's simple, traders. Because only 0.5% of 8 billion people on Earth have adopted it. Listen to me carefully. Less than 1/2 of all the people on Earth have adopted Bitcoin. And with that little tiny drop in the bucket, with that little taste of the human race adopting it, with that almost insignificant adoption rate, Bitcoin became the best performing asset the world has ever known, and it holds the #1 performance spot for every time period you can conceive. It did all of that with 0.5% adoption. It shocked the world with 0.5% adoption. It rocked and broke the financial system with 0.5% adoption. Where is it going to be at 1%? What is its record going to be at 2%, 3%, if this is what it has shown us with 0.5% adoption. Are you kidding me? How on earth can the best be behind 0.5%, half of 1%? How is it that the best can be behind a half of 1% and not in front of 99.5%? How is that possible? It's absolutely asinine to think, oh, that the best is behind us in Bitcoin because it's already at 0.5% adoption. Where was the internet at 0.5% adoption? Where was the iPhone's adoption rate at 0.5%? No one would ever say that the iPhone's adoption rate is behind it because 0.5% of all future Apple iPhone owners have adopted it. No one would ever say that. It would be stupid to say that. It would be stupid to say that, wait a minute, out of all the people in the world, now that 0.5%, half of 1% of all the people on earth have adopted electricity, the best adoption rate for electricity is behind us. Wouldn't that be ignorant? Wouldn't that be stupid? So why does this now not apply to Bitcoin in your mind? If it makes sense that nothing at 0.5% adoption is finished with its best, if it doesn't make sense when you apply that to anything else in life, why do you make an exception when you apply it to Bitcoin? Why? If 10 years reveals the truth in the financial market, that you can't fake it, that it must be real if it's lasted over 10 years, if it stayed consistent over 10 years. Bitcoin's given you 15 years. Why does it not apply to Bitcoin, but it applies to everything else? But somehow, when you turn that intelligence to Bitcoin, it stops being so. Why? How can the best be behind Bitcoin at half of 1% adoption? How can the best not be in front of it? Bitcoin's best years haven't even started yet. Bitcoin's best performance hasn't even started. How can you call how can you call half of 1% even a start? Isn't that a test? You test things with 1 and 2 and 3%. You don't, you test. That's not real at half of a percent, is it? It's not really real when you do it at 0.5%. When your child is born, and let's say the average human being has an average lifespan of 85 years. When a person is born and they have already lived half of 1% of 85 years, are their best years behind them? Are their best moments behind them at 0.5% of their life? Is your child's best time behind him or her at 0.5% of his or her life? Is your career over and the best period of your career behind you when you are 0.5% into your career? Or is the best part of the book over when you've read 0.5% of it? Is your college exam over at 0.5% of all the questions you have to answer? Come on, people. How can the majority not be in front of us? How can the best not be in front of us? How can the best performance not even be started yet at 0.5%? It's absolutely asinine, it's stupid, and it's ignorant to think that Bitcoin's finished, that its best years are behind it. This is dumb. You know what I'm saying is true. Today, there are 8 billion people on the planet. 8 billion. Now, despite all the rhetoric you might have heard, despite all of this talk about declining population rates, population rates are rising, will continue to rise forever. Listen, my mother used to say, Oliver, never say forever. You never know. Mom, I'm sorry. Forever. The population will grow forever. Estimates by all types of organizations have the population of planet Earth at 10 billion by the year 2050. Now, listen to me carefully. By the year 2100, maybe we're at 12 billion. But let's just take the jump from now 8 billion to 50 billion. So think about this. In the next few years, we're going to have 2 additional billion people vying for Bitcoin. 2 additional billion people vying for a limited supply asset. It's already ridiculously scarce at 8 billion. 10 billion? You mean the competition is going to exponentially increase with an additional 2 billion people being added to the grabbing group, the group that wants this, the group that's grabbing, scratching, biting, and fighting for it? And you think the best years are behind it, and 2 billion people haven't even born yet. Bitcoin's got 2 billion people waiting to get their hands on Bitcoin that haven't even been born yet. And you think the best years are behind it. If the world population stayed at 8 billion, the best years are in front of it. But we're going to 10 billion and 12 billion and 14 billion forever. There are certain things that don't ever stop growing. There are certain things that never stop expanding. And population is one of them. The US debt is another. Come on, people. You are smarter than this. You are better than this. Bitcoin. This is something I want you to take in. Bitcoin is accessible to the entire world right now. There are 8 billion people on Earth. Bitcoin, this very day, this very hour, this very minute, this very second, is available to every human being on Earth. It's accessible. Think about this, people. It doesn't have to become accessible. It is accessible right now to every single human being, like the air we breathe. It is borderless and it's permissionless. No human being needs a permission, needs any permission from another human being to have Bitcoin, to access Bitcoin. It doesn't cost anything to access Bitcoin. Not a single thing. It doesn't cost anything to receive Bitcoin. If you've got something of value to deliver, I can send you Bitcoin, and not a single person on this planet can stop me from sending you Bitcoin, can stop you from receiving Bitcoin, and you don't have to pay anything to receive the Bitcoin that I send to you. If you're some amazing website builder in Kenya, Africa, and I want your services, I can send you Bitcoin, and not a single human being can stop it. Not a single human being can thwart it. Not a single human being needs to give you permission. It is borderless, it is permissionless, and it is available to every single human being on planet Earth, not in the future, right now, for zero cost. Now, I ask you, what else on this God-given green planet that we live on, what else is permissionless to every human being on Earth? What else on this Earth is available to every human being on Earth? What else requires zero permission? Nothing. Think about this, people. Apple Inc. is worth $3 trillion, and it is only accessible to a small percentage of the human beings on Earth. $3 billion valuation, and the vast majority of people can't access it. 3 billion people, $3 trillion in valuation. Apple's worth $3 trillion, and it is not permissionless. It's worth $3 trillion, and the vast majority of human beings can't access its shares, can't receive its shares, can't send its shares. Even the people who own Apple shares can't access the Apple shares on Saturday and Sunday after 4 p.m. New York time. And this thing is worth $3 trillion. Imagine if Apple shares were available to all 8 billion people on Earth. What would its value be? What if every single human being without permission, no matter where they are on the planet, borderless, in an instant, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, could have access to Apple shares? How big would Apple be? How amazing would that be? How much more valuable would Apple be if it were borderless, if it were permissionless, if it was instantly available every single moment, nanosecond of a human being's existence? This is insane. This is mind-boggling to me. It sends chills down my spine, people. The world has never had something like this. It is hard for us to wrap our hands, our minds around the enormity of this new thing, this new experience that Bitcoin has brought into our existences. And we're underestimating it. It's so different, we're underestimating it. It's so mind-bogglingly huge, we can't mentally go there, so we're underestimating it. My God. But just think, I don't even necessarily want you to believe me. I don't necessarily want you to accept what I'm saying. I want what I'm saying to make you look. There are few people in the world that have Apple shares. And there's 16 billion Apple shares. 16 billion Apple shares. And a small percentage of people have access to the 16 billion. It's not borderless. It's not permissionless. There's 16 billion of them, and this thing is worth $3 trillion. Bitcoin's going to take that out with ease because of borderless, permissionless, global money that is accessible to every human being on Earth, yet is not controlled or manipulated by any human being on Earth, is going to be the most desirable thing on Earth. Let me repeat that. A money that is accessible to every one of the 8 billion people on earth that will soon be 10 billion and then 12 billion. A money that is accessible to every single one of them instantly now, that is borderless, that requires zero permission from any other human being on earth, that is not controlled by a single human being on earth, can't be manipulated by a single human being on earth, that cannot be stolen, cannot be confiscated, cannot be destroyed, cannot be debased. This will become the most desirable thing on planet Earth, and Apple has no chance at maintaining its #1 spot. I'm here to tell you that. Gold at $13 trillion has no chance at maintaining its #1 spot as the most valuable asset class in the world today. It has no chance. Say goodbye to gold at $13 trillion valuation. It's gone. It's finished. It's always lost because gold is not permissionless. Gold is not borderless today. Gold is not universally available to every human being on earth. When's the last time you've seen someone with gold? I ask you that. How many people in your life do you know have gold? How many people can show you an ounce of gold today? How many people? How many people do you know? Zero. Yet it's worth $13 trillion? How many people have access to gold in any decent amount? Zero that you know. And this thing is worth 13 trillion? Gold has been co-opted by governments. They're the largest owners of it. And this thing is worth 13 trillion. It has no chance at staying #1 because its borderless nature has been robbed from it. It is not permissionless. It is not accessible to every person like air. It's not infinitely divisible. It's not transferable. It can't it transfers well across time, but not over space. All of these inferior assets today, they're inferior to Bitcoin, and today they have a higher valuation. But that is our fortune. That is our blessing today. That's a sign that we're so early that the most superior thing in the universe today is far behind all of the inferior ones. Well, not all of them, some of the inferior ones, because Bitcoin today, in less than 15 years, became the 11th most valuable asset on planet Earth. Out of all the assets on planet Earth that have existed hundreds, if not thousands of years before Bitcoin, Bitcoin's catapulted itself to the 11th spot, 12th or 11th, wherever it is right now. But think of all the thousands of things that have existed. Bitcoin is number 11. That's crazy. And it's less than 15 years old. Out of all the fiat currencies in the world, there are approximately 200. Bitcoin is like 20, but it fluctuates. It's between 20 and 26. It's in the 20s out of 200. It's a baby. It's 15 years old. Gold has the head start, 6,000 years old. But say goodbye to the #1 spot held by gold. Gold's already lost. Every other asset has already lost. The velocity, the power, the momentum with which all of these assets hear the footprints, the footsteps of Bitcoin behind them. They're frightened, they're scared. They hear Bitcoin's footprints behind them, people. Nothing has come up upon them this fast, with this much force, with this much velocity, with this crazy momentum. Nothing they've ever seen or experienced before. All of the assets are scared of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's coming for them. Bitcoin is eating the world. It is the ultimate black hole. And as more and more people who have their life stored in these other inferior assets like gold, they are going to one by one realize what I'm talking about. They're going to realize that what I'm saying is true, and they're going to make the switch just as I did. Do you think I'm the first person to make the switch to sell all of my gold for Bitcoin? You think I'm the first and only one? I know I'm special, but I'm not that freaking special. I'm not the first one who's done that, and I certainly won't be the last one. That whole migration from gold to Bitcoin is just starting, and you are luckier than you even know you are, because you're here now, able to ride the gap. There is a gap, an unfair gap at this particular point, arguably, I should say, between the valuation of Bitcoin and Apple. Bitcoin should be far more valuable than Apple. And we can profit from the closing of that gap. There is an unfair gap between the valuation of Bitcoin today and gold at 13 trillion. We can ride the narrowing and ultimate complete elimination of that gap. All of human existence going forward will not have that gap. Do you understand that we are fortunate enough to have the gap? We are fortunate enough to catch Bitcoin in its baby state. Most of human experience will only know Bitcoin as number one. You will have grandkids that say, you lived at a time when you could buy this? Really? You lived at a time where it was available? Really? How old are you? We are fortunate because we are early. We are fortunate because only 0.5% of the world has adopted it. We are fortunate because the vast majority of the people are still blind. We're fortunate because the vast majority of the people on planet Earth still don't get what I'm telling you here today. You are elite. You are rare in the world. We should be thanking whatever God you worship. You should thank that God every single day for being alive during this time. Because to be alive during a life-changing discovery is very rare. To be a human is very rare. The odds of being a human being are so infinitesimally small that you're rare just to be a human being. Now think about how rare that is. To go further, you're already rare as a human being, but a human being that understands that Bitcoin is going to eat the world, that's the rare of the rare. And then a 13%er, you're the rare of the rare of the rare. I'm telling you, people, Bitcoin's best days are not behind it. It's in front of it. You ain't seen nothing yet. Bitcoin hasn't even warmed up. Bitcoin doesn't even have its uniform on yet, to use a sports analogy. Bitcoin's still in the freaking parking lot. It hasn't entered the stadium. 0.5%? And it's already in the 11th spot. It's already taken out 80+% of all the money in the world, all the currencies in the world. It's taking out every asset you could throw at mankind. It's taking out thousands of them, and there's only 11 yet left. There's only 11 other assets left to take out, and it's only 15 years old. Is your 15-year-old finished with life? Are the best years behind your 15-year-old? What if you said that the best years were behind gold at 15 and it's 6,000 years old right now? What about silver? When it was 15 years old and you said silver's finished, the best years are behind it, and it's 9,000 years old now. What about bonds, 600 years old? What about the equity market? Oh, the equity market's almost 200 years old. Oh, it's finished. The best years are behind the stock market, the equity market. After 6 years, we're approaching 200 freaking years. What if you said that to Apple? The best years are behind it in 1995. Do you know Apple was 15 in 1995? Apple in 1995 wasn't the Apple that it is today. What if you said Apple's best years were behind it in 1995? Some people did. What about the internets? 1995, 1996, 15 years old. What, the best years of the internet were behind it? And we're talking about something that is exponentially grander, far greater, far more special than any of those things. And it's only 15 years old. And only 0.5% of the world has adopted it. You wait. Mark my words. I can't even honestly say it's just the beginning, because the beginning hasn't started yet. And that is my take, guys. That's my message for you here today. So don't buy into this notion that, oh, well, Oliver, what about diminishing returns? Well, think of the letter S, will you? No one said that a meteoric rise happens without a rest, happens without a pit stop, happens in a straight beeline. Nothing in life happens that way. You run a race, you run a marathon, and you rest, and then you run a marathon better. And what do you try to do after your resting periods between marathons? Don't you try to beat the last marathon you did after the rest? What if the slightly smaller diminishing returns is equivalent to Bitcoin saying, well, I gave you 400,000, I gave you 4 million%. I gave you 4 million%, right? I'm resting a little bit. Don't I deserve it? And now that was just me getting warmed up. So give me a freaking break. I'm an S. I'm not a straight line. In the middle of an S, there's a little tapering off, isn't it? When you start off from the bottom left-hand side of an S and swirl upward, and then you go flat a little bit until you swirl upward again. All adoption happens in an S curve. Don't confuse the curve part of an S as being the top. Don't confuse the curve part of an S curve adoption as slowing down. Traders, Bitcoiners, you're early. You're early. But that doesn't mean get lax. That doesn't mean you have a lot of time. Being early is unique and different from having a lot of time. They are not mutually the same. They are not the same. They are mutually exclusive of each other. We are early, but we still don't have a lot of time. Bitcoin is going to outprice the world. And your window of time to stake your claim is shrinking by the hour. Because once Bitcoin finishes with its resting period, its flattening out or curvature of the S, it's going to meteorically go into the other part of the S, and it's going to S its way up, repeat S its way up, repeat S its way up, repeat S its way up. You think that adoption is one S? Really? The adoption of a discovery is millions of S's, and we're in the first one. We're in Bitcoin's first S, and it's S-curve adoption, and it's going to have millions of S's. That's how early you are. Don't buy into the hype that it's over. Don't buy into the hype that Bitcoin can't duplicate what it did in the past. Bullshit. Don't buy into this notion that, Oliver, it's the law of bigger numbers, that the bigger the number is. No, bullshit. 0.5%. That's the number you need to focus on. Half of 1% has adopted it. How can you squeeze the other 99.5% and say that something less than the half of 1% is going to happen? It's stupid. Don't be stupid. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's my Friday talk with you. As I mentioned before, I did not plan to have this live talk with you. It is impromptu. I won't be able to take your questions. I apologize in advance for that today. I'll take them later. So please, if you have any questions that you want me to address regarding this talk, please post them in the comments below this live talk. Also understand that this full live session will wind up on my Bitcoin Unleashed podcast in the next hour or two. So be on the lookout for it there. And if you want to, I think it would be great for you to re-listen to it and earn some free sats on the Fountain app if you like. I love you all to death. I'm so passionate about this. I hope my passion doesn't get in the way of my message. Sometimes it might. I apologize about that, but I'm always reminding you at the end of every single one of my talks that I don't take your time lightly. You've given it to me here today. It is probably the only thing that I would consider more valuable, more precious than Bitcoin, your time, because you can never get it back. And you gave me something today, whether you're listening to this live, whether you're listening to it in recorded form, you gave me something that you can never get back. It is something that I never take for granted, people. Every single time I'm given the opportunity, I'm afforded the opportunity to speak to you from a podium with a mic in my face on a stage somewhere. I really try to do my best to deliver something of value. I hope I've done that here today. God bless you all, and stack harder. You're not stacking hard enough.
My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!